Fantasy Managers, welcome back to the FPL Addicts and Esports Live Fantasy Weekly Videocast and Podcast. On the agenda today, Everton party like it's 1999 after finally winning once again at Anfield. A late Christian Benteke winner breaks Brighton's hearts, while Jesse Lingard and Mikel Antonio help West Ham win a crucial London derby over Tottenham. But before we get onto any of that, we've got another Peely's Puzzler, obviously absent last week due to my absence, but we're back now. So the first two clues rather, will be given now, and the next clue will be given midway through the podcast as usual. So the first clue, I came through the youth academy at Arsenal, making 11 appearances for the club in the league. I'm not sure if that's right. I need to double check that, but I came through the youth academy at Arsenal will be my first clue. And the second clue, I spent loan spells at Oxford United, Sheffield Wednesday, Rotherham, Wolves, Getafe and Reading while still on the books at the Emirates. So the first two clues came through the youth academy at Arsenal and spent loans at all those clubs away from Arsenal. So there we go. We've gone through the little intro and also the Peely's Puzzler. And the next thing to do, as usual, would be to introduce my right-hand man, which is Elliot Craig. Elliot, how you tracking, mate?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you, mate. It feels like this game week of FPL has gone on for absolutely ages now. It feels like it's only just ended, but we're at the end now, so we're here to dissect it all tonight. So I can't wait, mate.
Yeah, there we go. I just want to correct it. I'll just say with the clue, 38 total appearances he made for Arsenal was Emi Martinez, but more on that a little bit later. But you've gone with you've got your three FPL shocks. I doubt this player is going to be in there. This Peely's Puzzler of mine. He does still play in the Premier League, but I doubt he'll be in there. Is he, Elliot?
Oh, I don't think so, mate. But game week 25's now ended, and the highest score in the world was 135 points, and the average this week was 55 points. But here are my three shocks of the week. Firstly, we have Leeds man Stuart Dallas, who's in here for the second consecutive week in a row since I was last here, at least. Who managed a goal, a clean sheet, and 3 bonus points in their 3-0 win over Southampton. And because he had a double game week, he also played Wolves. He got 2 points in that game, so he got 17 points in game week 25. Secondly, we have someone who I know Ollie had in his team, and he's a favourite on the podcast here, and it was Harvey Barnes scoring yet again and assisting in the Foxes' 2-1 victory over the Villains. Barnes also received 3 bonus points, totaling a 13-point score in game week 25, and I'm sure you were glad to see that, Ollie.
I mean, of course, Harvey Barnes, with that Barnsley commentary over lockdown, if you still haven't seen it, I don't know what you're doing. You've been living under a rock for absolute months, but he's an absolute legend, Harvey Barnes, brilliant player as well, and he's helping out my fantasy team, which is always nice.
Yeah, possibly one for the England squad in the future, mate, definitely. But we also... Our third one here, we also have another Leeds man because they had the double this week. You know, they managed to get points, and we've got the midfield maestro, Rafinha, who despite not managing to return against Wolves in their 1-0 loss, the Brazilian scored against Southampton and took home 1 bonus point, which gave him a total of 12 points in game week 25. But that's all from me for my shocks of the week, mate.
Yeah, thank you. I will just say, just before we move on, Rafinha was captained by our manager of the week, which we'll move on to a little bit later, but a great captain shout from our manager of the week, picking the Brazilian there. We've also got our fixtures and results to look over, so we'll move on to those. Now we'll move back ever so quickly to game week 25, which started, as you say, in the Midlands at Molineux, where Wolves triumphed over Leeds by 1 goal to 0. The assist from Adama Traore, who went on a brilliant run. His shot hit the post before rebounding off an unlucky Meslier in the Leeds goal. Wolves took all 3 points, and it wasn't a great start to the game week for the Yorkshire side. Southampton drew 1-1 with Chelsea. They didn't start too well, Southampton, but went 1-0 up against the run of play after a good finish from Takumi Minamino. Mason Mount restored parity for Chelsea as each side took home a share of the spoils. Elliot, with that result, obviously two sides that have probably done pretty decent. Also, obviously Southampton started the season quite well and have tapered off a little bit. What are you reading into that game?
Well, Southampton, they just needed to manage to get a point on the board, didn't they? They've just not been at the races recently since Man United sort of brought back some bad PTSD for them. They just haven't really been the same. You lose to Newcastle 2 weeks ago. It's not good signs, is it? But they'll take a point against Chelsea. That I know they got beat by Leeds in the game after that, but a point against Chelsea at home after Tuchel's come in and everything, it's not a bad result at all for them. I think Chelsea definitely will feel that they've dropped points in that game a lot more than Southampton have. But they're on a decent run of form now. Chelsea, they've managed to beat Atletico Madrid midweek, so I don't think they're complaining at all.
And you wouldn't be if you're Chelsea. Definitely rejuvenated after the appointments of Thomas Tuchel. Burnley drew 0-0 at home to West Brom. Not much to report in that game other than a red card to Semi Ajayi, but 0-0 there. And then each side took home a point each. Everton took 3 points home away from Anfield. Not a long journey rather between the two grounds, but Everton, were very happy with that result, as you would be. First time they've won at Anfield since 1999 with goals from Richarlison and Gylfi Sigurdsson supplementing that 2-0 win. Elliot, how happy must Everton fans be feeling right now?
I was going to say, I can't remember. Obviously, I wasn't alive since they've last won at Anfield. I've been alive when they've won against Liverpool, but it's weird for me to see them walking away from Anfield with 3 points and, a clean sheet as well. Jordan Pickford in goal. You do well to keep a clean sheet, but he actually had a really good game against what I'd like to say about him. He actually played really, really well. And, Liverpool, another side like Southampton that just haven't been at the races recently. They've had a big dip in form. So, they've sort of they've handed the league over to Man City this season, I think, already.
And just on Jordan Pickford, I know obviously with your Newcastle allegiances, you're not the biggest fan of Jordan Pickford. Does he start at the Euros for you this summer?
Absolutely not, mate. He's probably fourth or fifth choice for my liking. If he's starting in goal, we've got absolutely no chance. There is 4 or 5 English keepers that have been better than him this season and have been for a couple of years. So absolutely not.
It's probably fair. I probably wouldn't start him either, but definitely a good performance for him and a great win for the blue side of Merseyside. So ever so temporarily, Merseyside is blue. Fulham take home 3 points against Sheffield United. A goal from Ademola Lookman, who's been decent for Fulham this season. They haven't had too much to cheer about, but he is definitely one player that can hold his head high. He's got the winner. Decent finish as Sheffield United were condemned to yet another defeat. It's not been a great season for the Blades. A complete contrast to last season. But I think the Yorkshire side will be playing Championship football next season, if we're being totally honest. We'll move on. A horrible result for the Gurus Spurs. West Ham 2-1. It's so good to see Jesse Lingard back in the goals again and smiling and celebrating. He scored. Mikel Antonio also got on the score sheet. Lucas Moura goal wasn't enough for Tottenham to take anything. Elliot, what a massive result this was for the home side.
Yeah, mate. West Ham. We've talked about Southampton, talked about Liverpool having dips in form. West Ham, they've risen from the dead this season. Survived last season just about. Wasn't looking too great. Even at the start of the season, I know we went to their place opening game of the season and we actually managed to beat them 2-0. And you look back now, what a massive result that is going to be for us come the end of the season, possibly. Beating West Ham away. It's not too many teams that can do that these days, as seen with Spurs. So. West Ham, they're flying at the minute. Jesse Lingard was exactly what they needed. He probably, he looks like a great character for their dressing room. Moyes is inspiring them all. So go on the Irons.
I mean, it's great to see. West Ham have definitely been the surprise packet of the second half of the season, and Jesse Lingard has been a massive part in that. Leicester took home 3 points away from the Midlands. They went to Aston Villa. 2-1 win. James Maddison and Harvey Barnes with the goals there. And Traore couldn't quite get the Villains anything from that game. But he's been decent for them this season as Bertrand Traore. But they couldn't quite take anything from that game there. Harvey Barnes, we've already mentioned on this podcast already. He's been insane this season for Leicester. His form rolls on. The Leicester train rolls on. And they once again took 3 points there. Manchester City, big win for them over traditional top 6 rivals Arsenal. Raheem Sterling with the early goal there. And Arsenal couldn't find a way back into the game. A lot of FPL managers would have been happy with that. On both sides, really, of Manchester City's attack and defence, a lot of managers would have profited from that result. Mahrez with the assist as well is owned by quite a fair few people these days. So big win for the blue side of Manchester. Another side of Manchester that took all 3 points was the red side, Manchester United, who won 3-1 over Newcastle. I mean, I know you, Elliot. You're a massive football fan. You're a massive Newcastle fan. But is it correct that you actually turned the game off midway through it?
Third goal went in, I turned it off, and then 5 minutes later I put it back on and thought, should probably watch it out. But I was sick of it by then, mate. There was no fight. They looked lethargic. It was horrible. Horrible, mate. It was one of the last straws for me. It was one of the first times I've actually switched it off. I did put it back on again for the last little bit, but I probably didn't need to at all, did I? So it doesn't matter.
I mean, I know you're a massive Newcastle fan and you've stuck through your club through thick and thin. When was the last time you turned a game off? I'm interested.
Been going back a couple of years now, I think, mate, which probably says a fair bit about my character. So I'm pretty proud of myself for that. But all good things must come to an end. But yeah, it just wasn't good enough against Man United. I know it's a difficult place to go, Old Trafford, whatnot, but there's no excuse for not trying, and that was what bugged me about it. But yeah,
I suppose you just draw a line under it and move on. Big few games coming up for your lot now, so let's see if they can pick up some points. The weirdest rivalry, I'd say, in all of the AFL and all of English football, if we're being honest, is Brighton and Crystal Palace. And Crystal Palace got the last laugh. Mateta with the opening goal for Crystal Palace. That was a nifty little finish as well. Joel Veltman, who had a really, really good game for Brighton, drew the home side level before a late winner from Christian Benteke. You are absolutely buzzing with this result, Elliot. Tell us why.
Yeah, I was having a little look about at Brighton's fixtures, and they're obviously they play a lot of good football. Brighton. I'm a massive fan of Graham Potter and what he's done with the Seagulls, but they're not safe from relegation this season. They play good football, they pass the ball well, they have lots of shots, but they just can't seem to hit the back of the net. And I was having a look at their fixtures, and they've actually, with Burnley, I think they've actually dragged themselves into a relegation fight with that result. So I was very happy, because I think Palace, you can assume they're safe now, but Brighton with a team that's sort of like, they actually aren't 100% safe. So I was very, very happy with that late goal from Christian Benteke. A lot of people were calling it football terrorism on Twitter because they weren't very happy with the way that Palace played. But as Roy Hodgson said, doesn't care at all. They're going back home with 3 points. That's all that matters for the Eagles.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I've had this discussion a lot as a Rovers fan, because we've played some really good football and lost games, and played some really bad football and won games. I'd much rather win games than lose them, no matter how you play. And in the final game of the game week, Leeds absolutely walloped Southampton by 3-0. Stuart Dallas, Patrick Bamford and Rafinha, all FPL favourites this season, all got on the score sheet. Helder Costa with 2 assists and Tyler Roberts got the other as the Yorkshire side. They atoned for their earlier mistake in the game week against Wolves, and they put it right, getting 3 points in that game there. We'll quickly brush over the fixtures before we introduce both Jack and Matt in just a moment. So we'll move forward to game week 26 now. The deadline, worth mentioning, is Saturday night, 10 p.m. Melbourne time. So make sure you don't miss that. That will be 11 a.m. over in the UK. So don't miss that whatsoever. The game week starts in Manchester between Manchester City and West Ham. That will be the first game of the game week, 11:30 p.m. Melbourne time. Should be away from Manchester City there, you'd think. But then again, who knows? Moving on to the 3 o'clock kickoff, there's only one this game week on the Saturday. West Brom will host Brighton. Straight after that, Leeds host Aston Villa. Then your side, Elliot, at 7 o'clock Melbourne time. Newcastle hosting Wolves. A huge concurrently, Leicester will host Arsenal. Tottenham will host Burnley. Massive game between 2 huge English clubs in Chelsea and Manchester United. Sheffield United will host Liverpool at Bramall Lane. Everton will play against Southampton, looking to continue their good form and continue their momentum after their good win against their local rival. Manchester City will play Wolves. Burnley against Leicester. Sheffield United once again playing against Aston Villa this time. Crystal Palace will host Manchester United. Fulham will play against Spurs. West Bromwich Albion will host Everton. And Liverpool will host Chelsea. Massive game week. You still with us? Good. All right, they're the fixtures and results. Absolutely massive game week and a lot to talk about. And to do so, we will be bringing in now our 2 resident guests from the FPL Addicts and Esports Live sectors, respectively. And we will do so now. Nice little intro video there. Great work from the man who will start with, Jack Gillibrand. Absolutely, you're getting better with this technology stuff. You're improving by the week. That was absolutely brilliant.
Just clicking a few buttons there, Ollie. Don't you worry. I'll take care of that, mate. How we doing? You good?
Yeah, I'm very well. Yourself?
Yeah, all good. Glad to be back on the pod with the full team. It's nice to have the band back together for the week. So yeah, boys, you're good. Elliot, we missed you.
Yeah, you didn't miss us too much, did you?
Me and the Guru had it covered.
Mate, you fired so many shots at us. We turned it on. And as soon as we turned it on, I heard Matt say that I've held on to Rashford for too long, and he did amazing for me. And that Jack had a great week after scoring the same amount of points as me. I was like, what's this going on?
It's always nice It's always nice to outscore you. Then, does that mean Elliot turned the TV off twice last week?
I think the bit where I think Matt was telling me I should have had Gundogan in, that made me and Ollie giggle a little bit. So that was quite funny for us.
No, listen, we're all good. We missed you.
We'll move on to you now. And, FPL's going all right for you at the moment, and Gundogan's been the main part of that. But football, real life football, not so much.
Yeah, look, Ollie, not so good with Spurs. And to be fair, last week wasn't a good FPL week for me in comparison to others. But look, Gundogan has kept my points nice and steady other than last week. But the positives are I got to meet two of the boys from the pod, me and Jack the other day, first time in 9 months. We never had met in person. And the same with Ollie. I met him at the Melbourne Victory game. So just Elliot left now. So look, negatives. Yeah, poor FPL week, and Spurs not looking so good other than the Europa. But did get to meet two of the lads in the from the pod, which was awesome.
Yeah, great to meet you, Matt. And we'll have to do a live pod, in a room all together at one point sometime soon. I'm sure we can get that organised. Just on that Victory game, by the way, Rudy Gusted, an absolute Rovers legend. Bag 2, he looked amazing there. So I was pretty happy when those 2 goals went in. But we will move on to have a look at our teams now for the moment. It's been a little while since I've obviously done this, but I've obviously got my share screen up for the moment. We'll start with my team, and I've had a pretty decent week. Very unlucky to miss out on the $10 voucher, but it is what it is. If I had started Edison over Sanchez, I would have got there, but obviously hindsight is 2020. I had a decent week though. Stuart Dallas, probably the best player, 17 points at the back in a back 3, decent back 3 as well, all 3 contributing quite a lot to it. Bruno Fernandes, 12 points, always decent. Marcus Rashford, the same. And Harvey Barnes on 13. So I had a lot of really, really good contributors. And I also nailed the captain shout in Patrick Bamford. Really disappointed that I benched Edison, or else I would have had that voucher in my back pocket. But it is what it is. I'll share it around for some other people to get. But 89 points, a very decent score. Inside the top 200k for the game week, and taking some green arrows after a shocking last game week, the one before. So pretty happy with that, if I'm being honest.
I just can't believe you didn't start Edison, mate. I know I talked to you about this midweek. I just cannot believe you didn't start Edison.
Look, my thought process was I thought that Manchester City would win. I thought that Arsenal would score, though. I thought it would be like a 2-1 or a 3-1. And I thought that Brighton may get away scot-free against Crystal Palace, as it was not to be. But, you look at those decisions. And like I say, hindsight is 2020. I probably should have started Edison, but I didn't. I can't change that now, so I've got to move on. We will move on, though, now from my team. We'll move on to you, Elliot. And like myself, you've had a really good week. Maybe the week off the podcast has spurred us on a little bit.
Yeah, just I think it was 2 points below you, wasn't it, mate? You got 89. So Nick Pope, Burnley clean sheet against that 0-0 draw against West Brom. I don't even want to talk about that game. That would have just put me to sleep. Cresswell, didn't expect much from him. Spurs, they haven't scored too many recently, but they're always going to find goals with the attack they've got. Same as you, Diaz and Stones at the back with Dallas as well. That Dallas was just a treat to wake up to in the morning to see that him and Bamford had both returned. Maddison, a little bit of a differential for me. Not a lot of people have got him in their teams. I sort of prefer Harvey Barnes this season, I think. So he's done well for me, but he's got that yellow cloud over him at the minute, so I'm not too sure with him. Didn't play in the Europa League this morning, so hopefully he's resting up for the double game week that he's got. Fernandes, was thrilled to see him return, as you can all tell. Was really happy with that. That we'll just not talk about that one. Son, nothing. Salah, nothing. Kane, nothing. Bamford, return. So, yeah, not a bad week from me at all, mate. Took green arrows for the most part, so I was really happy with that. And, it's just more points on to next week, I think, isn't it? Just keep chipping away.
I mean, yeah, you're just outside the top 10 in the FPL Addicts and Esports Live League, which is going strong, by the way. There's a few changes going on, especially after the last game week that obviously we weren't here. I took absolutely massive red arrows. I think you did as well, Elliot. But decent score there. Are you a little bit concerned about James Maddison and the injury cloud lingering over him there? I can't speak, my word.
I am, mate. I want to know where he's at, where his fitness levels are. So I've got to wait for Brendan Rodgers to speak. And if I find out he's not going to play, even if it's just not going to play one of those games, I think I'll still go with the swap to Harvey Barnes, who is cheaper Madison at the minute still. So I think I'll be covered there with the Leicester boys for the future. But I should be all right, I think, mate, because I've got one of my free transfers to use on that if needs be. But yeah, we'll just have to see.
And I also like if you'd have started Oriel Romeu over someone like Son. You would never, but you would have got the same amount of points as me. But 2 more points, I'll take that. Clawing away that gap in the league between me and you. So we'll take that. Small margins, but there you go. We'll move on to someone who didn't have such a good week and was on the podcast. So you say you carried the podcast while you're on it, and you did a decent job, by the way, Jack. But in terms of on the pitch, not too much to shout about.
Are you talking about me or Matt? Come on.
No, on about both of you, but we'll start with you.
I think we've both had a similar week, me and the Guru. It's because we were putting all the research into the podcast script last week and not into the team, right? But yeah, he's got an excuse, that right? But listen, I still think I had a decent squad to go into the game week. But then, if you look at my bench, Ollie, we had a Grealish moving on to that. I think I was the only one not to find out he wasn't playing. In that leaked news, and obviously Cavani's still struggling with the muscle injury, because I reckon he could have bagged a hat trick against Elliott's Newcastle for sure. Yep. So my front three obviously didn't go down well. Souček came in for Grealish, only provided 1 point, and then obviously you can't even deal with Liverpool, can you? I've got the 2 Liverpool assets in there. I've gone very off. Trevor still got Trevor in there and not Trent, so that's why he's still underperforming, and Salah's just obviously not hitting again. City assets kind of carrying it in there, and Bamford got him in and chose well with the captain. Obviously, I think a majority of our league went to Bamford in there, and obviously I picked Bruno, stuck by him, and he just keeps delivering, doesn't he? He's just so good, but he's the only kind of shining light. And Struich, whatever he's called, the Leeds centre-back, carrying the team in there.
I think you'd have been all right there, Jack, if it was a single game week. If the second Leeds game didn't happen, you would have been looking all right. But, yeah, unfortunately it did.
Well,
Cheers, Matt.
You're saying you wouldn't have had the Bamford goal or the Strout clean sheet if the second Leeds game hadn't happened. So.
Yeah, true. But I think the Fernandes captain would have been a bit... but then a lot of people might have captained Fernandes, right, instead of Bamford. So, yeah, that is a good point, Ollie. But I think it was that Dallas and Rafinha in the second game that killed a lot of people. So
I think quite a few people gambled on the triple assets, didn't they, for Leeds? And obviously the Rafinha one came in, and the Guru told me not to do it, so I didn't do it. And obviously everyone benefited from it, and I didn't.
You've always got to find excuses from somewhere.
Of course.
Push it on to someone else. I wouldn't take that advice, but if it works for you, then move forward with it. Someone else who was obviously on the podcast, as usual, was Matt last week. And once again, not too brilliant a week. He still got above the average. So obviously, if that was me, I'd still take a little win out of that. Have you or not?
Look, I was pretty disappointed in the end. I think I had such a good January, and I took a lot of points since I hit that wild card, and this was probably the first week since I hit a wild card where I've taken some red arrows and probably didn't quite make the best decisions. I think not bringing in Rafinha, who I'd really, really rate in FPL as well, which not taking. I think for me, I was a bit too conservative. Didn't want to take the extra hit for someone like Rafinha. Didn't want to pay that extra for Dallas, and it's come back to kill me. But pretty disappointed. And again, got the captain wrong. I put a lot of faith into Danny Ings after his goal for me the other week, and I thought he might fire, but it wasn't the best one. But look, it could have been a lot worse. It's probably the first week in a while where I've been about 20 or 30 points behind everyone else, and it's going to happen at some stage. So it happened to be this game week. Unfortunately, I just didn't have the faith in Leeds like everyone, and I think I didn't want to get too caught up in having too many Leeds players without having a wild card. So. Yeah, disappointed, but I guess I'll take that consolation, Ollie, of being above the average.
I mean, the thing is, I think this is probably the best week to take some red arrows, because there's a lot of fixtures around the corner.
Yeah, that's it. I think that was that's sort of what I'm telling myself now. Like the team I've got there is quite set up nicely for this double game week, which was why I didn't want to remove the balance too much and bring in these single game week players from Leeds. I know I've got 2, but I can transfer a couple of those out easier. than say if I'd bring in another extra Saints player and another extra Leeds player, because I don't actually have my wildcard or free hit. So I was expecting a bit of a dead week at some stage, but 20 or 30 points behind a lot of my rivals is disappointing. But hopefully I can move on this week, and my man Gundo can come out of a few goals.
I mean, definitely. I think he's the one for you. He's been your best player, especially throughout these, the better times you had in your league, but in your team. Sorry, I think he said on Twitter the other week that he was the best value for money player that you've seen in FPL. Would you support that, or is there anyone else maybe from back down memory lane a little bit that you can think of that's maybe beaten him there?
You know what? I actually can't think of anyone else. I think at 5. He started at about 5.4 at one point, didn't he? I think, and he dropped in value, and at that price and the goals he scored, and the number of points he's got, I just can't think of anyone. There was, going back down the years, if I looked at last season, Mason Greenwood was quite handy, but there's been other bargains down the years as well in other FPL years. I remember when Wan-Bissaka was about 4 million at Palace, and he was quite good, but. Nothing beats Gundo, I don't think. It's just his stats have just been phenomenal from early January, late December onwards. So still going to stand by that, and got to back my man Gundo.
Yeah, I think he's up there for me as well as in terms of the best value for money FPL asset I have ever seen. Just before we move on to the transfers, though, we will move on to our league table. Still, Tom Stones tops it, 12.5k in overall rank. He's still absolutely flying. We've got Chibia City just behind him in second spot, COVID-11 in third, the Reds in fourth, and rounding out the top 5, we've got Panagiotis or Pansar FC in that top 5. Elliot, you're just chilling down there in 11th with Matt in 12th, and I'm in 16th there as well, as you can see. So we're all not going too bad here in the FPL Addicts and Esports live world as we just scroll down. Looking for Jack. Where is he?
Deeper and deeper we go.
Hey, I know your pain, Jack. This was me a few months ago, and it's not a nice feeling. So,
listen, it's going to be all right. I told you when I got into the top 20, I knew I'd peaked when I got into the top 20.
Dave has nearly got you. Oh, God.
Dave Watts' points minimal. Statman Dave is minimal behind me. I know it's his life goal to go ahead of me at the moment, so he's on FPL 24/7. It's all right though, boys. I'll be. I was quite happy to be in the top 20 for a short time. I'll keep, I'll hold that middle 50 for a while and see how we go. Hopefully, with the moves this week, we get back up there.
And of course, with my share screen, I can't bring up your team at the moment, Jack. But
that's right. I'll bring it up on mine if you want.
You've narrowly avoided another FPL suicide. Tell us how.
Obviously, when you're making these, making the moves in your transfers, as you all know, it's you make so obviously having a couple of drinks with the catch up, a couple of non-alcoholic drinks on Tuesday night with the guru. We started talking about obviously transfers. I was getting a bit of advice, being the guru and all that he is. So we started making a few moves on there, changing the midfield around, putting the City assets in. And then if I just go on to what we've turned up. So this was obviously my previous team, the guru with a bit of advice. We put the transfers in. After I made the transfers, I clicked confirm and then forgot to click the wildcard button. So there was a
little small thing at the bottom that says play wildcard.
But when you've got a drink in one hand and the phone in the other, sometimes you get confused, don't you? So got distracted, pressed the confirm button, had a moment where I was emailing the FPL support team at the Premier League head office, asking for help, going, what do I do? And obviously just making a transfer in there, and then you can obviously press use your wildcard and continue, and it goes back. So I narrowly avoided a minus 32, I think it was.
36. It was 36.
36. It was 36.
Oh, God.
9 transfers, mate. So, yeah, good fun.
But if we go back to the you've actually got now with your wildcard, just talk us through it for a second, because obviously the wildcard's an absolutely massive thing. It's a huge decision that you've made. Are you happy with the team you've got there?
Probably for the next hour, I'll be happy. Then I'll probably make some more moves again. I think the thing is with using your wildcard, as everyone knows, you make so many transfers, you change your mind constantly. Like when I was with the Guru, we had Salah in there, and I've just gone back around in my head. Do I want Salah in there? I had Sterling in there, and I've got KDB in there, seeing how he looks, and it's quite nerve wracking because I need to bounce back here, so the pressure is on me. I'm quite happy with the defense, but it's whether to put De Bruyne out, bring Salah in, sacrifice Shaw, sacrifice Target, and bring Stones in for him, put Salah back in. So there's a bit of movement in there, but you boys can tell me live now. What are you thinking? What do you think of it?
It's a lot of double game weeks, isn't it? That's the beauty of the wild card, having it to play now, because obviously Matt and Ollie, you both played yours in that double game week a couple of weeks ago, didn't you? So this is when we're going to see how much yours really paid off. And I know you both got massive scores, but with people like Jack that can afford to play their wild cards now, I think we'll see a little bit of movement in the league to people that maybe didn't have the best of weeks when they played theirs. But all round, I really like it. I talked about Harvey Barnes before, he'll be my transfer if I'm going to make one, if Maddison isn't passed as fit. And then Calvert-Lewin, I like him as well. He'll probably bag a few goals. And the Spurs assets, I think, are going to be really, really key this week. I can't decide between Fernandes or Kane for my captain, but I'm not really sure what you boys are doing, but I can't decipher between the two at the minute.
Yeah, if I look at your team, Jack, it does look good. I would say I'm not too sure on the, and we did speak about this with a few non-alcoholic espresso martinis, and I'm not too sure on the removal of Salah and having De Bruyne in there. I just think with City won a lot of games, I don't think they need to play him in both. And he wasn't delivering enough before. You do need differentials, though. I think we were sort of saying to sort of push yourself back up there, but we talk about FPL suicides. I think not having Salah for this double game week could be an FPL suicide. And going back on Elliot's point as well with the captain between Fernandes and Kane, I think Fernandes is just so hot right now. He's the most consistent. I couldn't say which one I'd prefer. That's a tough call.
I actually think you put my captain as Kane. So you sabotaged me.
You sabotaged.
Yeah. Don't know, Fernandes. I think I would have said, look, it's different phases of the season, right? Start of the season, I would have said Son. And then it would have moved into Fernandes and then probably Gundo. And then now, Fernandes is probably the hot man. Kane. Yeah, again, he's got two good fixtures, but we're well off form. We are well off form. So it's a tough one. I like Calvert-Lewin as well, though, this week, and I like Harvey Barnes as well. I think there's so many good captain options.
Yeah.
You maybe just got to back your own side with United. I might do that with a Spurs player and just look at it that way. But it's a good side you got there, mate. But you got to think towards there's a blank game week in 29, and at the moment you've only got. You've got a few. You've got the two Brighton, the Leeds. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 from. So that's not a bad. Yeah. So you got a pretty nice little squad. I'd say so. It's actually quite good side, mate. But you won't be able to sleep over that Salah move.
I've still got a bench boost available. So obviously with a wild card, as you know, you can't do
play
a
it this week. But are you planning to play it next week or week after or whatever?
I think
you've sorted your bench out there, which is quite nice to see.
Well, obviously that's what I worked on with the Guru. Try to get a squad in there, get all the double game weekers in. Think about game week 29. Think about the bench. Create a squad. So this is what we've come up with so far. Well, I came up with after a few amendments, changed it maybe 6 times since Tuesday. So, Ollie, what do you reckon, mate?
Look, if I take another look at it, there is a lot of double game weeks you've got at the moment there, which is always helpful. I think you've got a lot of captain shouts as well. You look at even people like Kevin De Bruyne or Fernandes or even Ilkay Gundogan. Like we say, there's so many people you can put the armband on. And I think you said you're in 96th this week or whatever it is. Not 96, like whatever it is. You're in a very low spot. Outside the top 20 by a fair way, you're going to rocket right back up that league. And Statman Dave is going to get nowhere near you, I don't think, at this point. With all respect to Statman Dave, that is an incredible wild card. And I think, there's points galore coming your way this week.
Fingers crossed, boys. Fingers crossed. We'll see how we go.
I mean, moving on to me, obviously we've got a lot of discussion about captain picks, which I'm sure, with your Guru section, Matt, we'll get onto later. I'll show you how confident I am in one certain team and one certain player. because I know, Elliot, you were saying how you're saying I've used my wild card. I'm in a bit of trouble. I've got an idea up my sleeve, and that idea of mine is to play a chip, and that is to play the triple captain, and I'm going to play it on Harry Kane.
Ooh, I like it. I like it.
Is Ollie going to sell his triple captain to the guru like he did the wild card?
I'll try my best. I'll try my best, because obviously I sold you the wild card.
Here's your pitch.
It was brilliant. All right, let's see. 2 fixtures. Obviously, you've got the players like Fernandes and Rashford, but you see the 2 big top 6 clubs playing against each other. They're always draws. They're always 0-0s, and the Man United-Chelsea game will be another one. Burnley at home. Kane loves playing against Burnley. You'll know that. Scored a hat-trick there, away at Turkey, obviously. Obviously, that was away. This is at home, but even still, Harry Kane. It is Burnley. Can't defend. I mean, they're actually not too bad at defending, if we're being honest, but Kane will absolutely score an absolute ton. Fulham away will do the same. I think there's goals galore coming for Kane, and I think if you triple captain him, if you captain him whatsoever, he's getting points. So that's what I'm going to be doing. In fact,
do it now.
Done.
He's done it. He's done it.
Hey, I don't
triple
back down.
captain.
I don't back down. I don't back down.
I do like that. I do like that a lot.
All bases covered, lads. All bases covered. And then eventually, I think in a couple of weeks, I'll bench boost. In terms of transfers, I do want to get rid of Thomas Souček. I know obviously he's an FPL hero, but with those fixtures coming up, they're not looking too great. Obviously, I've got the 2 West Ham assets on my bench. Obviously, they've not got good fixtures either. So I might look to go. I don't know who to go to. Any ideas there, especially from you, Matt, being the guru, or even from you, Jack, or anyone really, or Elliot as well. Just tell me who to go, and I might consider it. Maybe, Matt, it's time for you to tell me someone.
Yeah, look, I quickly going back on your captain. I do think Harvey Barnes isn't a bad shout. He's a bit different, but you may have sold me Harry Kane. But if we're going to your transfers, I think Souček's he's got to come out. I know I Rashford scored last week, and he hasn't been the best asset this season, but he probably stays. So I think Souček's probably the midfielder that you get rid of, because Rashford's got the 2 games. So does Son. So does Barnes. What else? Potentially, if you're not too worried about game week 29, which is a blank game week and West Ham play, you might want to get rid of one of Dawson or Kufal for the game week. Maybe bring in another defender that has 2 fixtures. And then you can get more double game weekers in your 11. So it depends how you want to play it. If you want sort of 10 out of 11 double game weekers, or maybe 11, this is the week to take points hits, which I obviously don't normally like. So in that midfield, there's definitely a few options. You could look at maybe Traore from Aston Villa. He's got a couple of games. Lookman from Fulham. I know he's got Spurs in one of the games that we're conceding goals. I think he's got Crystal Palace in the other fixture as well. So there's definitely potential. You've got 6.6 there, so you actually got a little fair bit to spend. Pedro Neto is a good one. I know he's got City in one of the games, but if Wolves score, it's normally him. He's got a woeful Newcastle side in the other one. Sorry, Elliot, but very very woeful side. And then Neto's got some pretty good fixtures, I think, after this too, from memory. So there's a few good ones in there, mate. I'd definitely say Souček's the one to get rid of this week if you're going to do it. And then if you want to get another double game weeker on the board, this is the time to take hits. So I'd probably be looking at. I'll tell you what you could also do. You could maybe put in a cheap, like a like for like of Souček in terms of price. And if you still got that million left, you could probably upgrade Brewster for Josh. Is it Josh Maja from Fulham? 5.5 million. He's not a bad shout. So I'd probably say, Souček, Brewster, or maybe Souček, Dawson, and Kufal, or something like that. Maybe go for a few if you want more double game weekers on. But again, it's just, I'd definitely be looking at definitely the 1 transfer, maybe the 2 if you want that extra double game weeker, and then if you really, not too bothered about losing more points, than the 3. So you've got a bit there, mate. So looking good.
I'll make the 1. I'm not going to make 2 because I want to get as many points as I can this week, and then I will take out probably Brewster next week for Maja. I'm not too sure if Fulham are playing that game week in that game week 29.
They are.
They are. Right, they are. So Josh Maja is probably the player I'll look to bring in, and I might even bench boost that week. That's probably my plan. Keep the West Ham assets in defence and just bench boost, because I know Brighton are playing that week. Obviously, I'll be starting Sanchez, so I might have to work something out there. But that's for another week, I suppose. We've sort of got to rush through this one a little bit because we've got a live guest coming on in just a few minutes. But we'll go through the remaining transfer teams. We've got Jack to move along to at the moment. So what are you fancying? What are you saying, Jack, for transfers wise?
Yeah, well, obviously I've done my wildcard, haven't I? So we'll see how my wildcard goes. I don't know if Elliot, you've done yours, haven't you? You're waiting to do your transfers. You haven't done your transfers live. Do you want to do yours live as well, or not?
No, I've got to hold off for Brendan Rodgers, see what he says about James Maddison, and then you'll have to find out next week on the pod what happens with that one. So fingers crossed that Maddison's passed as fit, but we'll just have to see.
And in terms of Matt, what are you thinking about transfers?
I'll definitely bring in Harry Kane in. He was always coming in. And then look, I've shied away from taking hits, and it cost me last week. It cost me before I played my previous wildcard. So I'm definitely going to take a couple of hits. I might even go into the -8 territory, which I don't like. But I want to get as many double game weekers as possible. So I'm looking at Dominic Calvert-Lewin potentially, Jamie Vardy maybe, maybe Harvey Barnes. There's those sort of guys. And then maybe even I'm kind of liking Traore or even Pereira from West Brom. So there's a few in there, but it all depends on what I can afford. But definitely Kane and definitely another striker, maybe DCL or Vardy. So I'll be taking hits. And look, triple captain could be an option. I think you may have sold me, or I'm not too sure yet, Ollie. I'll have to have a think because that's a chip I like to try and keep as late as possible as well. So.
I mean, it's an interesting one because there are a lot of games, and this is a real chance really to get some points on the board. But last time I sold you the wild card, it worked. If I can sell you the captain and it worked, you
saved my season.
Leverage. Obviously, I'm not at the legal age to drink yet, but I think the next victory game, I think there is a code or something in order.
Are you a Pepsi Max?
Yeah, no, I reckon so. So. Before we head on to the guest section, then we have got the guru section, which we'll do first, and then we'll move over to Chris, who's wanted to be getting on this for a while. So we'll keep him waiting just a little bit longer. But we'll move on to you, Matt. You're not doing any form players this week, which is a bit of an interesting omission, but everything else that you usually have in there with your Scout 11, your teams to watch, and your differentials are definitely still present. So Matt, fire away with your guru section.
Yeah, look, thanks, Ollie. No form players this week. It's just been a large number of game weeks. Seem to find it's very similar sort of form players every week at the moment. So we're going to go straight into the differentials. And one who I just mentioned as a potential transfer for you, Ollie, it's going to be Traore from Aston Villa. 0.8% ownership. He's got Sheffield United and Leeds, 2 games, so he's a double game weeker. He's just coming off the back of 8 points. Without Grealish, and potentially he's going to be out for at least one of the games. You'd think he'd be in some pretty attacking positions as well. So really liking him and really liking those 2 games for Villa. Another one, I just mentioned him as well, Pereira from West Brom. I think he got 24 points in the last double game week. He's on penalties. He's on set pieces. 1.6% ownership. Look, he's got a couple of tough games. He's got Brighton at home and he's got Everton at home. But it's now or never for West Brom. And I think they've got to, start attacking teams. They've got to start going for games. He's only 5.4 million, so really, really good option, especially if you're looking to sort of remove a Souček out there or someone like that. So not a bad one. Another one, it's going to be another double game weeker, and it's going to be from City. And this is one that me and Jack did discuss the other night as well. And it's Bernardo Silva, 1.4%. He's actually in my draft, and he's got me a lot of points lately. 28 points in the last 5 games. Seems to be starting 90 minutes every week. I don't think there's been a game he's not played 90 minutes in for a while now. And he's only 7.4 million. So really liking Bernardo Silva. Another differential, who I can't believe I'm even saying is a differential, but it's just the way his season's gone. It's going to be Sadio Mane, 5.3% ownership. That's absolutely nothing for a man that was probably 30, 40 or even 50% ownership in previous seasons. He's got Sheffield United away. which on paper is a nice fixture. I know Liverpool are struggling, but you'd still back them to win there. And Chelsea at home. And the thing about Mane is he did score in both of the reverse fixtures. So he scored in the home game against Sheffield United, and he also, I think he got a double-digit score in the Chelsea away game. So, really good one to look out for if you need something completely different. Might even be a triple captain option as well, just for something completely out there. I know he's off form, but this could be his time. And then the last one, I'm really, really excited to be saying this one. I'm going to put Gareth Bale in there, 0.3 ownership. Looks like he's back to his fitness. I know we lost to West Ham, but that second half, he was absolutely brilliant. Scored a really nice goal off the bench in the week against the Europa. So those signs are telling me he's going to play on the weekend against Burnley. And I've got a good feeling he's going to get some sort of return in one of the next two games, and it could be quite big. So, 0.3% ownership is absolutely nothing. So, if we really, really want to do something completely out of the box, then Gareth Bale's my fifth differential for this game week.
Yeah, I think that last one, Gareth Bale, is the big bombshell. Obviously, as a Tottenham fan, you were waiting with bated breath to see when he would return back to his Tottenham form, if at all he was going to return back to his Tottenham form. But do you reckon he's the best one out there for FPL managers, especially under 1% ownership, if they're looking for something completely different? Or have you got anyone else possibly maybe you'd be looking at that price range?
You know what? I think at that price range, I think he's about 9.4. So if you're willing to spend that type of money, I think he's one of the best for me. I am biased, but seeing the way he played in that second half against West Ham and just seeing his finish in the Europa League, just reminisced a bit of his past time. And I think 2 games in a week. We've got a good gap as well between the 2 games, so I can see him definitely starting in the Burnley one and getting minutes in the Fulham one as well. I think, huge differential. So I think he's definitely the one to back and look at.
So in terms of them, we'll move on to your teams to watch, your 3 teams to watch for the moment. Are Tottenham in there? Obviously, we've talked a bit about Gareth Bale, obviously massive player, and obviously we've talked a lot about with me, triple captain Harry Kane and Heung-min Son and all of that, all the Tottenham, that firepower against a measly little team like Burnley, let's be honest. But are they in your 3 teams to watch?
Yeah, look, they are. It was very tough to pick the 3 teams this week, and it was hard to pick even, my side Spurs over Liverpool as an example, because we've both been off form. But I think our 2 fixtures edge Liverpool's 2 fixtures, so I've definitely put us in there. I still think they're going to be tough games. We have looked very flat in a lot of league games, but if we're based on fixtures, and like you said, past results against teams like Burnley and Fulham in previous Premier League years, then I've got to put Spurs in there. I've also got to put Man City in there with 2 home games. The form they're on is ridiculous, so they're definitely in there as well. And then my third side again on Liverpool or Man United was another one I sort of looked at. But I think with them both having that slightly potentially tougher fixture, I've put Everton down, coming off the back of a win at Anfield, playing against Southampton at home, who they look pretty woeful of late, and then West Brom away, West Brom in the bottom 3, and not getting the results. So Everton round up my 3 teams.
Yeah, I think there's definitely there is some change to be had. If we're being honest, Manchester City have been fairly brilliant this season. They're going to win the league, you'd sense. They can't stop losing. I think it's 19 wins in a row, is it now, for Manchester City? Obviously, they can't stop getting results. Double game week. I think, especially in the defence even, if you look at guys like Ruben Diaz and John Stones and Ederson, there's definitely some points to be had there. In terms of captains, you haven't gone with any Manchester City players, quite strangely, in the list that we've got here. Who have you gone with?
No, you're right, and I think Pep Roulette got into my head this week. So I've gone with Bruno Fernandes. It's very hard to look past him. He's just on form. Seems to be every single week, and Elliot will know penalties for absolutely nothing in most games. So
absolutely,
he's got to be on there. You'd expect them to get at least a penalty in one of the next 2 games, but so we have the joke about Penaldes, but outside of that, he's still an unbelievable player and can score at any moment. So Fernandes is in there. Kane's going on there for the fixtures. Salah as well. I think he could really go under the radar this week as a captain and as a triple captain. He's got a history of some rocket scores in previous years as triple captains and on these types of game weeks. So really good option. I've put a couple of strikers in together. Vardy, I think again he could go under the radar as a captain this week. Home to Arsenal, away to Burnley. Likes his goals against those, the Arsenals of this world, and I can sort of feel a big score from him. And DCL, Everton, a couple of good games, and you just expect some returns. And then keeping with the Leicester theme, going to have to be Harvey Barnes, who we spoke about today. He's had 2 double-digit scores in the last couple of weeks, and he's on absolute fire. I think he's a brilliant captain shout. If I owned him, I might be tempted, but I don't at the moment. So that wraps up my my standard captains. And then if we're going to move on to a curveball, it's going to be Bale for me. I think I've just raved about him, and if he gets the minutes, which I think he will, I think he could come out with a double-digit score, whether it's sort of that 10 to 15 point range. But that could be a big differential pick as a captain if considering he's got 0.3% ownership.
Yeah, definitely a lot of food for thought there for managers. Obviously, Gareth Bale, you had to throw him in there. Not surprised. Obviously, when you talk up someone in FPL, you talk them up till the cows come home. We've seen it with Ilkay Gundogan. Do you reckon Gareth Bale's now the next one?
Look, It's hard. He does. I'm only seeing glimpses, but we all know what he's capable of. He's always produced numbers in the past. I think the thing about Gundogan though that made him so special was his price point. Bale doesn't quite have that price point, so I'm going to say I'm probably on the fence with that call. I think the price point kind of takes it away. But I'm seeing points. I'm feeling points. Over the coming game weeks from him, and a big end to the season for him. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, especially as a Tottenham fan for you. I'm not surprised that you're talking him up so much, but the real question is he in your Scout 11? Got that to move on to.
He's not. So look, I've raved about him, but there's too many players this week. I think that are ahead of him. So that had to fit in, and I've got in there Gundogan, of course, goes in there. This is within the 100 million budget as well, and having Gundogan in there just gives you so much money to play around with. So no Bale, Gundogan, Barnes, Salah, Fernandes, which I think is a very sort of template midfield for this week. Going into the defence, Diaz, Pereira's a really interesting one. Wanted to throw him in on the differentials, but we've obviously got him in the Scout 11. Potentially going to be a right winger for Leicester over the next couple of games. I know he played as a right winger last weekend, and he's being raved about at the moment on Twitter. So definitely get him in if you're potentially looking at a wildcard. No, that's one for you, Jack, actually, to have a look at if you've got that extra bit of funds. He's got a big opportunity this week. Matt Target, popular one from Villa, speaks for himself. He's been getting points most weeks. Edison, Diaz, the 2 City guys. Edison's most consistent starter. He's the one that is not going to get done from Pep Roulette. So definitely got to be the keeper. We spoke about the midfield. Front 3, Calvert-Lewin, who I've just spoke about as well. 2 good fixtures. Harry Kane, premium option. He's got to be in there with those fixtures. And Ollie Watkins, I think 2 really nice fixtures for him as well. I know there's no Grealish, but it's time for someone like Watkins to step up then. Without him, Leeds away, Sheffield United away. Someone, and I think as well, if you put Watkins in this week as your striker, you're going to have him for game week 29. So that's another sort of good option. So really liking him. Few people have missed, Vardy, likes Raheem Sterling and Cancelo and those guys, but I just couldn't fit them all in with the budget. And I think in terms of balance, this is I think this is a pretty good balance, and it hits all the big players for this game week.
Yeah, you'd think so. There's a lot of players in there that can do a job for you. I just want to throw this team to the panel then to discuss. Elliot, I'll start with you. Obviously, I've tried to sell the Harry Kane captain shout. So far, on the Scout 11. It hasn't worked. What do you think of Bruno Fernandes as the captain shout this week on the Scout 11?
Yeah, I know I said before I was tossing up between the two as well. I was speaking to one of our mates at school today, and he was asking me the same question. He was, who you're captaining this week in fantasy? And I did say I've got Fernandes at the minute, because I think, over 2 games, you'd expect a fair amount from him, to be honest. He usually does those massive scores within 1 game. So imagine if he just has even one of them, and you're probably going to be in a good position. If he can do anything near 2, it's going to shoot you right up the league. So I think Fernandes would be my man for this week, definitely, mate.
Palace away as well. The pretty miserable side at times, aren't they? So
yeah.
And Jack, if we go to you now, I just want to have a quick, not even a competition, if you will. I know obviously we said about your team getting so many points versus this one. Which team do you reckon will score more, this Scout 11 or your own team this week?
Well, talk about the guru sabotaging my wildcard. He puts out a different squad, doesn't he? So it's no. I think there's some good options in there to look at before I settle on my team. Like I said, with a wildcard, you're going to change it all the time until the deadline, aren't you? So there's definitely a couple, like the Pereira one's a good shout. I think Pereira from West Brom as well. We talked about, didn't we, Guru?
Yeah, we did.
Kind of option. If you're doing a 5-man midfield,
wasn't he? He was a 1-week wonder.
Yeah. I think as well, to quickly add, Jack, as well, is this one here. I've actually activated it as a free hit. So if you've got a free hit, I think this is a really good option, this team. Whereas your wild card, I was trying to base it around more
future games.
Because once you use that wild card, you want to try and when I use mine, it kind of built me up for about 5, 6, 7, 8 game weeks, and you're probably going to want the same because there's only about 12 game weeks left. So I think though this is still a decent little wildcard team though. But I'd say if you've got that free hit, this is more for those free hitters. But
some of them assets, your Diaz and Edison. If you can't, and if you want to get Salah in and move it around. So I think, listen, I'll have a look at it. I think it's a strong team. The Watkins shout as well. I did like Watkins, couldn't get him in, the one that I've currently got. But it looks good, Ollie. But I think I try and back myself on as my wild card to win versus this team.
And I probably expected as much as well. But
of course you did.
You would back yourself in. You would back yourself in. I agree. It's fighting talk from you, Jack. Let's see if you can back it up next week when we're back on the pod. But another good guru section from you, Matt. A bit interesting betraying him and backstabbing him with his team, but decent Scout.
Never the intention.
Of course, but thanks for the good guru. And now, after so long, we're going to end this podcast with a guest section. It seems quite strange to say that, actually. It's been, I don't know when the last guest section even was. It was a while ago, though, and we're bringing it back with a bang. Chris Reed, one of the FPL Addicts and Esports Live podcast biggest fans, is finally on the podcast. He's been gnawing Jack's ear off for absolutely he's finally here. Chris, welcome to you.
Thanks for having me, Ollie. Appreciate it. And you could say I've been gnawing his ear off a little bit, but it's more a case of we had to agree the fee for me to come on. So we've ironed that out now, and we've ironed that out now with Jack. So we're all good to go. But no, in all seriousness, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no worries at all. We've said in our notes here that we've got some of the hot prospects finishing the candidates looking for the top 20. So is that your aim so far for the season, do you reckon, to fire up that league for the last part of this season?
If it's possible, if I can. Obviously, it's a big week FPL wise for a lot of managers. There's going to be some chips being played. There's going to be transfers being made and whatnot. So it's my aim essentially. I'm creeping into that. Is it top 60 maybe now? So I've just got to keep going and making the right captain picks and whatnot. So if I can, I'll try and get into that top 20, but I know how difficult it is.
And obviously, Liverpool, your team in real life, away from the fantasy world, aren't doing too well at the moment. With a bit of a form slump, are you a little bit disappointed with their fall from grace?
Yeah, of course. I've got to be disappointed, which I'm sure Jack will be happy about, amongst others. But to go from last season, how amazing it was, and absolutely flying, of course, just beating everyone. And it's not gone that way this season, albeit the injuries have been there. There has been a lot of bad luck and whatnot. But it's just the way it is. And City have been the better team. So you just have to start again for next season, look towards, building for that and continuing in the Champions League, because there is still something there to be won. It's just whether, of course, we can manage to do something like that with the current form we've been in and stuff. So,
yeah, you're definitely not wrong there, Chris. And we know you're a massive fan of the podcast. So, how much advice would you say you actually take from us? Because I'm hoping you don't listen to the man above me on my screen here too much, and you listen to the man down there a little bit more. But how much advice do you actually take from us?
Do you know what? You couldn't be more true with that. To be honest, no. Everyone has their sort of say. Well, everyone has their opinions, and sort of what they think might happen, and what are the best transfers and whatnot. But the guru's the guru for a reason. He takes that title, and Jack comes up with some good ideas, and the whole Souček. When I followed at the beginning. Yeah,
Souček was all me.
Transfer, which, to be fair, in all fairness, Jack took that advice. He put it into place, and obviously, Matt, you didn't. And just the way it is, it all hangs in that balance of one decision, and it can either make or break your FPL game week. So, yeah, I do follow some of the advice. Obviously, you have to have some of your own ideas, and you have to try and maybe get one up on some of the other managers if you can throw in a differential, and it's got to pay off. It's always obviously a risk, but that's part of the game. That's why it's so enjoyable, I suppose. So yeah, I do enjoy, and obviously I listen every week when your pod comes out and stuff, and take it on board if I can.
Top work, read it, and listen. Good man for coming on. It's good to reconnect. Obviously, we were at university together, and we had some good times then. It's good to reconnect and start chatting about a bit of FPL, even though I hate speaking to Liverpool fans, even if you are former mates. But listen, you're doing cracking in FPL this year. It's good to see you obviously progressing just recently. So I think you should start taking a bit more advice, because I still am above you in the league. But going on to next question. I'm interested to know if you've got a five-a-side team. I used to play a lot of five-a-side at university. So with this year's FPL players, fantasy team, who are you going to put in your five-a-side pick? Who's 5 players in there to look out for?
Well, it's an interesting one. That one.
Can't pick yourself.
No, definitely not myself. I wouldn't pick myself any day of the week. But there are some interesting picks in there. I think if you're going from the goalkeeper, I'd probably just say Martinez from Villa. It's one of them where I think with the price that he's kind of is and whatnot, not many people expected him to be as good as he is, and obviously Villa have kept a lot of sort of clean sheets, and that's mainly down to him. So I'd probably just say he edges it, just based on his value and stuff like that. Obviously, you'd have to throw him in there, so that would be one of them.
Nice.
So defensive wise, you've had a lot of sort of big points from defenders this year, which has not always been a trend in terms of over the years for fantasy Premier League. So Stuart Dallas he's been brilliant. Cancelo. He's kind of like, these players are kind of players similar to what John Lundstrom was doing last year. They're defenders, but they've kind of moved into those midfield roles. So, that's where they've reaped the rewards. They've been able to get assists and goals. So it's between them two. I'd probably just shade it with Cancelo. So I'd probably have him in there. Midfield.
What formation are we playing here, mate? We're playing 1-2-1. Are we going for a diamond?
No, we just got to keep it simple at the back. Have the one man. We like our midfielders and our attackers. So we'll go with the 3 in the middle. The 2 in the middle, and then we go the 1 up top. So in the middle, it's got to be those 2 guys, hasn't it? Your man, Fernandes. Obviously, he's been doing bits. For most of the season, he did massive things for his last season as well. So he's definitely an amazing player, an amazing sort of transfer that he's managed to pull off. And FPL wise, he's in most people's teams, so it speaks for itself. He's brilliant. And then the other guy, which Matt Day's sort of raved about him this year, and you can see why that is, and that's Ilkay Gundogan. And you know what? He's been absolutely brilliant player. And even when you watch football, which I watch most of the games, to be honest, no matter who it is in the league, and I've watched City games, and as hard as it is to see them do so well, he's been absolutely fantastic for them. So you can't knock it. The striker is probably the toughest one, because we've had so many strikers that have been injured. You've got a few that are sort of coming back in now. You've got your likes of Vardy, Kane, who's coming back. I know that he's got a big double sort of game week fixtures, which people I think he's gonna probably do well in. So that being said, you'd have to go for probably Patrick Bamford. He's done well. He's not been expected to do so well by people. He was at Chelsea, obviously, and they let him go. He was at different various clubs in the Championship and stuff. So hats off to him, really, for coming in and holding his own and getting those goals in for Leeds, which they need to stay in the league this year, which they look like they're going to do. So yeah, that's probably me five-a-side team, to be honest, so far.
Nice team that. So we've got Martinez in goal. We've got was it Dallas at the back? Did you say, or Cancelo?
Cancelo, yeah, just.
Got a City asset in centre back and covering left and right, like he can. You got Bruno and Ilkay Gundogan in midfield. What a combo they are! Imagine that. And then Patrick Bamford up top. Nice, mate. What do you think of that one, Elliot?
Yeah, I think the striker position, I'd maybe argue someone like Harry Kane, but I've had Bamford in my team for most of the season, so I can't argue with you at all. Bamford, he's been brilliant. He gets a lot of chances with the way that Leeds play, so he does really well. And obviously, me and Ollie were talking at the start of the season. All our mates were asking us, should we get Bamford in? We were all saying, he's not cut out for the Premier League. He's not ready for it. So he's definitely shut us up and told us where to shove that. So he's done really, really well. So I'm a massive fan of that five-a-side that you put together there, mate.
Reedy's the guru here, and I love that five-a-side team. And obviously putting Gundogan in there has made me happy. But look, what are your FPL hopes and dreams for the rest of the season?
Oh, it's a big question, that, Matt, to be honest. Hopes and dreams, we're all banging to sort of FPL, and we all live and breathe it, really. And it's a difficult one. I think we all just want basically the average, which you speak about most weeks. You want to be getting above the average and above, really. And if you can manage to do that and sort of slowly make your way up the table, then that's the way to kind of do it, and sort of make these little transfers that are gonna get you these double sort of digit points if you can and whatnot. Yourself, as you know, you've absolutely shot up the fantasy league in recent weeks, and Jack, a while back he was flying, but he's I don't know what's happened to him. He's just sort of imploded, if you like. His head's gone a bit, but it happens to the best of us.
I think that's when I started chatting to you, Chris, at that time.
Quite possibly, playing these Mourinho mind games, it might have been part of it. So, possibly, but that, like I say, if you can sort of use your chips wisely, whatever you've got left, make these sort of transfers that are going to enable you to be able to move up a bit, then I think that's always a good start. But I'm hoping, if I can, top 50 will do for me based on the starts of the season. I'd be happy with that. If I can finish, top 20 or top 30 even, then happy days. I'm happy with that also. So yeah.
Yeah, look, top 50 is a good result, because I think we got about 150 in the league. So, if you can get yourself in that top 50, it's, you're going to be sitting somewhere pretty well, not just in the league, but in your overall ranking as well. And, with FPL getting more popular year in, year out, the top 50 in our league is probably going to be pretty high. So yeah, not a bad dream to have. And
finally, Chris, any tips for our listeners out there? Obviously, you've been listening to our tips, and it's all you pass on your experience. You're doing well now. Obviously, you had at university, you used to give us some great tips. You gave me a tip one time about boiling hot dogs in the kettle to make it quicker. Is there any tips that you want to give to our FPL listeners out
there? Yeah, don't put hot dogs in the kettle. That's the first tip. That's the first tip. You can have that one for free, obviously, but no, tips-wise, I think with this double game week coming up, there's a lot of things that can be done right, but there's a lot of things that can be done wrong also. And I think, tips-wise, I think one of the ones is some people who haven't got chips necessarily, your free hit and things like that, or you're even your bench boost and whatever, and people are going to be making transfers, looking at maybe three transfers, taking that hit, and I think it will pay off. Basically, if you're going to do it, this week's probably the one to do it, because there's so many games there really that players are probably going to be getting double digits and stuff like that. So I think some people will throw caution to making those transfers, but I think if you are going to do it and you're going to take that risk, I think it's got to be this game week, to be honest with you. And then your captain pick. For me, I'd probably go for Fernandes. However, a lot of people you'll probably find will go for Kane or Son, which I think are good decisions based on the fixtures. But I think this season the trend has gone stick to what you know, and a lot of people who've stuck with Fernandes have got the reward from it. And whenever they haven't captained him, you found that you missed out on the points. So yeah, that's probably all I'd say in regards to tips. And I think people should be okay. Managers should be okay in that regard.
Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, mate. You're a top man. And it's great to finally have you on the podcast. It was probably worth the while, but you're banging the door down. You're finally broken, and it's been great to speak to you well for the rest of the season.
Thank you, and yourself, Ollie, and the boys. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Reedy. Top lad.
Cheers, Chris.
Good work, mate.
Just before we very finally wrap up, we've got the final two clues from Peely's puzzle, which I forgot to include before, and he's just reminded me to do it during that section as Chris, because it's one of the players that he's just talked about. He's talked about a lot of people there, but there's one that he's talked about in one of his teams that is the answer to this question. So there's a quick hint. He still does play so far this season. So I'll give you the clues. Made 9 league appearances for Arsenal in the 19-20 Premier League season, and this clue should probably give it away. I'm the top scoring goalkeeper in the FPL this season. So we'll give you the answer next week. Well, that should be an easy one to go. First time I've really done a Peely's puzzle related to FPL. But yeah, that one should be rather easy. Hopefully you lot out there all get that. But Elliot, just to wrap up this podcast, mate, it's been a very, very long one, but hopefully the listeners out there have got something from it. What do you reckon heading into this week? Are you confident?
Yeah, I mean, as you just said, long one this week. A lot to dissect from last week because there was a fair few doubles, but next week's going to be even longer, I think, at this rate, because there's just going to be so many games, so many players that score well and stuff like that. So it's going to be a really interesting one. It's going to be like mayhem this week, I think, mate. So I don't really know how it's going to go for me, but just as you keep saying, above the average, just stay with the pack for this week, and then I've still got my wild card to use at some stage. So that's all I want for this week, and 3 points from Newcastle, hopefully, but not holding out on that one too much. So we'll just have to see, mate. Yeah.
So as we say, deadline is at 10 p.m. at Melbourne time on the 27th of February. Thank you to Jack, to Chris, and to Matt for their contributions this week. Stay safe, take care, and hope all your FPL dreams come true this week. See you next week. Bye for now.